morning. Up a little earlier than normal. Had to run my daughter to school. Just doing a bit of a warm-up sketch because it's been a few days since I've posted anything. I've been busy with family stuff mostly, which, it's all good. So, thought I'd take a little time and warm up a bit here, set up this goofy camera. Let's see. It's always a fight trying to get this in the right spot. What do I want to draw? I think I'll do a sketch from the back. I was working on one yesterday, and was trying a little different technique with the watercolors. I feel like I have not been drawing legs very well lately, like getting the right balance. Like, I don't really like that one. So it's one of those things. It's about the balance. It's about just making the figure look appropriate. With cartooning, I use kind of a more realistic style, but there is still a certain element of cartooning involved where it's not 100% realistic. I'm not aiming to be 100% realistic, and I think that the real goal for me is to make it read correctly, and that was something Daniel Landerman was speaking about in one of his recent videos about, it's not always about making it look accurate, it's about making it feel accurate. Because even sometimes when you draw it completely technically correct, it feels weird. And that's what I think I'm kind of hitting upon with legs lately, is the balance. The anatomy is generally correct, but the balance just feels fucked. So, anyway, with new characters, like in this case, Idris, it's always one of the parts of the process of developing such a character is just understanding what she looks like, anatomically, and applying that to all the various moments in any given script from all the angles that I have to draw her at. And sometimes that takes a bit of figuring out, like the rest of her design, figuring out what clothes she wears, figuring out how she fits in those clothes, figuring out what she looks like from various angles, what tendencies you see. 3 cups of coffee in, and I still can't talk. What tendencies she has, towards posture, stuff like that. My overall thought process on her as a character is that she tends to stand up pretty straight, but doesn't pose heavily, if that makes sense. Like Beatrice, she's always kind of posing when she stands. She's always aiming to be the center of attention, always aiming to make everybody look at her. Beatrix is sort of the, I don't know if she's the polar opposite of Marion from the Remedy, but those two are very much in contrast. Marion tends to be a little more slouchy. She doesn't like being the center of attention. She tends to kind of lean away a lot more, and I mean that literally. She's a bit more I don't know, it's hard for me to think because I've shifted gears away from that story, but and I'm trying to find kind of a happy medium with Idris where she's more confident for the most part, but every once in a while she gets kind of self-conscious. And hands are another thing I feel like I've kind of hit a rut with. Posing them, getting them in the right position, finding the right angle for, relative to the wrist. Like, a lot of times you do this sort of thing to make it look actiony and bend the top of the hand in, and then that old Jim Lee fist, like angle, and then if you rotate the hand back, this is probably dark as hell. If you rotate the hand back, it feels much more relaxed and more natural. Especially doing this sort of thing with the fingers in sort of I guess like a shell shape, conch shell shape, where it's sort of a spiral. It's much less actiony. Let's move this up a bit. That feels better. And, more indicative of how people really stand. So that's something that I bear in mind a lot, and it's very subtle, and it's supposed to be subtle. It's supposed to be inferred on an intuitive level rather than, oh, that hand is positioned this way. That must mean you're not supposed to. It's not code. I mean, I guess it is a sort of code, but so those sorts of things come into play a lot. I don't draw a lot of characters, even the superhero stuff. Like, I tend to make more fists with that stuff, but like that, I don't know. That's sort of one note storytelling a lot of times, and ends up being very monotonous. So let's see there. I've got this going across the back. I like the racing stripe motif in that swimsuit. It's not even a motif, that's like straight up racing stripe. I guess that way. More of a racerback sports bra look. Racerback? I forget how that's pronounced. That's one of the interesting things about figuring out a character's design as well is what kind of clothes, because it all builds together. Like, Beatrix has a very specific look, even though I vary it quite a bit. You always can tell it's her because she has an incredibly unique look. Marion is prone to kind of wearing demure things and very subtle, like, honestly, old woman clothes, as I would think of them, because that's where, that's what she is as a character. Even when she's young, that still needs to come through. Idris is she likes more fun clothes, but they're not impractical. Like, the big thing about Idris is that she hates waistbands. She's got a bit of a sensory, that's something I wanted to build into her, is a bit of a sensory issue, and she can't stand having waistbands, which is the whole point of the violence belt, is that she's basically triggering that sensory issue to create another part of her personality, or not create, but to access another part of her personality that's not always there. So that was a fun thing to design and come up with as a character and physicalize it a new way. To have an actual belt that reads the word violence on it was a lot of fun. I wouldn't probably normally have Idris in a swimsuit because of the whole waistband thing, but honestly, I've been watching a lot of Brazilian. I assume it's Brazilian. I honestly don't know. It sounds like Spanish, so it might be Argentinian. TV show I found the other day. Esto Escuero, I think is how it's pronounced, which I'm not sure what that translates to, because I didn't do well in Spanish class. But it's fun because they're all really lovely looking women in very skimpy bikinis. And aside of the obvious surface element of it, for me, being aware of the anatomy and how, being in that sort of an outfit and seeing how women who are comfortable in their own bodies, wearing such a thing on public TV, well, I assume it's public TV, on TV, there was a whole different process of moving, because a woman will move differently in a dress than she will in a bikini, than she will in a pair of jeans, or than she will in yoga pants, etc., etc. So that sort of thing all comes into play. And I try to convey some of that when I'm drawing, because, I want to, every aspect of that creates a different attitude in the character, and that's, for me as an artist, that's something to harness and be aware of and work with. Let's see. Maybe like that. And there. Let's go ahead and run that down to the bottom, right in the middle. That'll make an interesting design. And then erase her back off of there. I have been doing this little video blog for, I don't know, a couple weeks now. I think I've gotten a grand total of like 2 views, which, that's the way it works. I'm trying not to be like bummed or disappointed or whatever. Because I know, I've watched Gary Vaynerchuk, I know that this shit takes time. You gotta build your audience and whatnot, so in the event that you do like this video, if you watch this video and you say, hey, that was worth my time, I would really appreciate it if you do like it, share it. You know the drill. Like it, share it, subscribe, that sort of thing. Honestly, I'm doing this more as one of the other things I've been working at is trying to not make my women's shoulders quite so muscular, because I feel like it's starting to feel like there's nothing wrong with a woman having muscular shoulders or muscular arms or whatnot, but sometimes it feels a little too manly in a drawing. And if that was the aim I was going for, that'd be fine. It's just with a lot of them, it's not. But so I'm trying to find that sweet spot of, I guess, sculpting. Is that the word I want? But, it's always a matter of finding that right balance of line, shape, form, excuse me, and all that. But yeah, anyway, my point was is that if you enjoy this, then please subscribe, like, all that stuff. Share it if you have artist friends. Um, Something that I really want to get into for this is talking more about the thought process, because there's lots and lots of drawing videos out there, and my drawing process is unique to myself, and everybody does it a little bit differently, which is part of the learning process, part of how we all go through this, because we're all different artists. So I'm just sharing my perspective on that. But maybe if you learn something, and I've been teaching a class, private class, with the student for a couple years now, and I've found that I learn as much in the process of teaching as I think he does in the process of learning. And that's pretty important for both of us, because it makes it worth it, first of all, and it makes it fresh, which is something that when you're drawing or doing anything for decades now, it can get stale and it can lose energy. And drawing is a lifelong subject to learn, but there are those lulls in between where it can get tiresome, can be burnout. So I want to, put some energy into this sort of process. I don't know, our butt crack looks like it's too high. And let's see. Ribs. I just realized I've got our shoulders going in a different direction. Oh well. This is just a sketch. That's what I get for not paying more attention. I know, I'm totally meandering on topics here. Anyway, the reason I'm doing this sort of thing is just to share my knowledge, to help myself learn, to maybe have a video library of information to look at later, which is highly unlikely because I hate watching myself do stuff like this. So to the point where I've done books and not even looked at them once they were printed. So I want to basically, the whole point of this is to create a space where I can share my information that I know, potentially have people learn from it, potentially have a communication with those people, give access to folks that are fans of my work to see the behind the scenes stuff, share some of my learning process, share some of my learning stories, that sort of thing. Those don't look anything like fingers, but it's still just a sketch. Sing. I can sing in the videos because I have a habit of doing that. Because I also play music, so, you folks will have to be patient with me while I sing, because most of the time it's completely atonal and not trying very hard. Alright. One of the other things about my learning process is I am 95% self-taught. Like, I have a bunch of books, I have stuff, well, videos that I've watched and whatnot. Um, I went to school I went to college later in life, and I've got a degree in web design. And I was 33 at the time when I decided to go to school, and I looked at the curriculum and saw that I already knew a vast majority of the graphic design curriculum. I felt like I would just be retreading information I already knew, so I decided to go with the more challenging route and go into web design, because honestly, I kind of despise computers and always have. So, I mean, I feel like I did get a boost in confidence and learn from that time in school. I'm not 100% sure it was worth all the money, especially now since so much of that information is online and available that way. But, it was an important step for me at the time. And as far as the comics goes, I learned a lot on like fontography and color theory and those types of things. So I feel like that was a big boost. As far as my general illustration skills, I didn't do a goddamn thing. But, you'll have that. Since this is skewed, let me get a straighter on view, because there's that. Give me a hot second. I'm getting an eraser. Erase. So, my wife will probably be home from school soon. She's been doing really well. I'm super proud of her, because, going back as an older adult, like, she's going through that same process that I went through several years ago of deciding to go back to school, because, neither of us went directly after high school. And it just, when you do that, it builds up and it feels like a big deal. I don't like that at all. And then you get into it and it's like, well, what the hell was I so scared of? This is bugging me. And she's doing super well. Like top of her class well. And, I am very, very proud of her, because I understand what she's going through right now and how tricky, daunting, difficult it feels. And, to see her be successful and to see her enjoy it is really rewarding for me. So, hopefully, with the pregnancy and all of the other stuff we've got going on right now, it doesn't create too much conflict, and she can get through all her classes and everything without big issues. Because frankly, she hates her fucking job, and I don't blame her, because she's in a corporate situation, retail, where frankly they just don't give a shit about her, even though she's skilled and capable, which is garbage. It's garbage mentality. So, And if you're wondering who it is she works for, I'm not going to mention it because, frankly, I don't need it. All right. I think that's close to dry. I mean, if I sound ungrateful, I am grateful that she is able to make a living where she's at. It's not the most comfortable, but the way they've treated her has just been it's been not good. The amount of work she's put in, that is the worst hand I think I've drawn in months. She's put in so much effort, and they have just treated her like a remedial employee, and it's very frustrating. All right, so getting back to this sketch, now that I've got most of the ink work done and generally dried up, I think it's dried up. Yeah, close enough. I want to try a little bit different technique with the watercolor. In fact, I think I might stop this video and start another one and do part 2 because this is already getting close to half an hour. So I will see you in a minute. Cheers.